Let your boom and make it boom.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Yo. Yo. What is up? It's your boy. So I'll be honest with you. I need to yap a little bit before we start. So I'll make myself bigger real quick. I might make this like a whole thing or whatever. So, I've been hearing this sentiment, and now you get to see our mic too. I've been hearing this sentiment go around for like a while about how, at night, where these gamers, these competitive gamers, I was just talking to Ricky about this. I'm going to reiterate a lot of points that I made when I was talking to him. Obviously, it was welcome, Tengu. But I want to yap about how frustrating I think that these people are when it comes to these competitive gamers. Welcome, Ricky. Or when it comes to story mode games. I've been hearing the sentiment a lot lately, and it's been really bothering me. So just lock in. This is a yap session. So what I'm going to say is, like, I've always been a story mode gamer. Okay, Gigi. I've always been a story mode gamer. I've always loved story mode games. I've always been like a narrative driven person. People will recommend narrative based games for me constantly for the channel. I have been playing them since I was a kid. One of my favorite story mode based games, and it's not everyone's favorite, but it's one of mine, is Mega Man X-Band Mission. Mega Man X-Band Mission, right? It's a great game. I played on the channel like a while ago. I forgot to save over it or something. I closed out the game, so that's whatever, but it's an enjoyable game for me personally, because there's a lot of like difficulty to that, right? And my whole thing is, I used to play Sly Cooper. We played Jak and Daxter and stuff like that, right? So, I used to play Spyro too. Spyro's like more of a platformer, whatever. But then we have stuff like Mario and Luigi. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is like one of my favorite story mode games ever. You know, it's not even deep. The story's not even deep. It's just fun. Let me see what else. What else is like really solid? Pokemon. Some of the Pokemon games have fantastic stories in them, right? Particularly like Gen 4 and like Gen 5. And like then you get stuff like Sun and Moon and whatnot. But the game's quality and stuff, obviously I'm not going to argue that, but I've always been a fan. So I'm just telling you my backstory and stuff, right? I'm really annoyed by these competitive gamers, or gamers in general. This is the thing that I think is prevailing in all of gaming, where what's happening is, I don't know why this is happening, and I guess this is just a natural discourse of the internet. But people in real life, when I'm talking about video games with them, what ends up happening is we talk about the things we like about stuff, right? We're never automatically willing to put down something else because we're in the real world. We have nuanced takes about everything, you know? So if I'm talking about something in WoWa, or if friends are talking about Genshin, which I'm not that big of a fan of, right? I sit there and listen and I compare my experiences, and it ends up being a fruitful conversation because we're like, this is there's frustrating things, but there's good things about everything, right? And competitive gamers seem especially mad. This happened like the end of 2025. Especially pissed about story mode gamers for some reason. And I think I've talked about this with Tengu as well, that there's this prevailing need for competitive gamers to feel like they're real gamers, right? To feel like they're strongly associated with gaming itself, the idea of gaming, instead of just being these dudes who play and buy the same game. I'm using dude as like a nomenclature. Obviously, I'm not attaching any gender to it or whatever, but purely like all these dudes are playing these games, COD, NBA 2K, Madden, you could mention any of them, right? Or people who like ride for Fortnite or whatever and dismiss anything that even like tries to replicate it or whatever. I really hate that people want these things in gaming to be a monolith, right? I really dislike that. I think if you're going to make a game, any kind of game, what should happen is you should have multiple different kinds of that game so everyone isn't straight funneling into the one thing. Like literally the only reason people constantly are playing Call of Duty now is because they're comfortable in that space, right? A video I was watching about this particular topic was that the dude was saying that what's really frustrating about it is that the reason people make all these assumptions about story mode games and stuff, which is basically what they are, is because they've grown up playing these games for so long, right? Game after game after game. They've been playing them since they were little. And because like they were on like the PS2 and it was like, oh, this is something that's easily accessible. Like that parents used to buy games for kids, right? They still do, but like, you know, as an adult myself, I just buy whatever I want, whatever game I want. But my point here is like they grew up playing those and it was like easier access because it was something that wasn't weird. It was something that the child may have already done in real life, and it was just a sport. It was literally just a sport, right? Parents would stay away from certain games like COD, obviously, and stuff like that, or Halo even. Halo has a narrative, so I don't know what y'all talking about that, but so they didn't have access to story mode games. There's plenty of people who don't like turn-based games, and that's fine. Plenty of people who don't like stuff like Fire Emblem, right? Or I don't know. There's probably, you can throw like a story-based game because that is broad too. The terminology is really broad, but so they grew up playing those and they have access to the story mode games, so they have no connection to them. Now, what most people when I was younger in you know, fucking high school, right? When I would talk to someone who would enjoy those kinds of games, I would be like, I have no experience with those. And normally the conversation would just end, right? That was like 2009, 2010. But in the world we live in now, everything has to be like, this is either really ridiculous or it's the best thing ever, right? And that's the problem with competitive gamers. It's like, the thing that they always say, the thing that like I always constantly hear is that it's repetitive. Story mode games are repetitive. You jump into the battle, you control these characters you have no connection to, even though there are games where you literally can name and customize and be that character, right? But they're like, oh, this doesn't fulfill these needs or whatever, even though literally NBA 2K is a RPG, right? It's an RPG. You make your character and you play that character through a series of events. It's not explicitly story-based, of course. Or maybe it is. I have no idea. But my point is that those games are RPGs, right? Because that's also the bigger narrative. not only do people get frustrated, these competitive gamers get frustrated when it's not multiplayer, but they get frustrated at anything that isn't. A lot of people will buy multiplayer games or competitive games just to play them online, right? No one cares about the COD. Maybe you do. Maybe if you play Call of Duty, later Tango, thanks for coming through, bro. Sometimes people play Call of Duty for the story. I don't know why you would, because these stories have been ass. Like lately, they've been awful, and I just don't. There's the problem that I always have. Right? COD is always trying to do these stories, and they suck, like hard. And then there's really no reason for you to play the campaign unless the other features of the game are locked behind the campaign. And that's my whole thing. Competitive games and story mode games and whatever kind of games, they're not all a monolith. There's different kinds. People who say that, people who have this competitive meat riding thing, who only like competitive games, they only like online games, they only like fighting games, whatever, have a narrow view of what gaming should be. Gaming can be anything you want, and it can also be nothing, right? Gaming is not this thing that, like, I've ever really thought is, like, it's not a one-to-one. I don't know anyone who ever, like, what are we, when we talk about things like this, when we talk about anything that has nuance and subjectivity, you're always speaking from a point of, this is my personal opinion. But what I really don't like about a lot of these perspectives is that they're always saying them like they're the right one, right? And I know you could argue the fact that maybe that's not the case. Maybe that's not what's happening. When people present these ideas online and they happen to get popular or viral or whatever, they're still saying it from their perspective, but their language betrays that perspective, right? They're not saying things in a way that's like, oh, I'm just speaking on how I feel, right? They're talking about it like, these games suck and I don't want to hear anyone else's opinion on it. And I used to be a multiplayer hater, right? I did not like multiplayer games. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of them. I'm not like into them like that, right? But I try my best to always give them credence, because without those games existing, like, there wouldn't be really cool multiplayer functions in things like Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, which is a story-based game but has great multiplayer. Great fun, I should say. It's not great, but it was really fun when the game was first coming out. Malik and I were playing it, and Ricky Malik and I were playing it. Those were great times, right? But in that same umbrella, there's no reason that we can't just enjoy everything. We can't just pick something up and be like, hey, this is cool, or pick something up and be like, oh man, this is not my cup of tea. And a lot of people do still talk like that. But it's just, I find it so, like, narrow-minded to think like that. Because with everything else, with movies and stuff, people don't think, well, maybe people do think like that, but gaming just feels like this hyperbolic thing that people make such a big deal about, when I think there's always different perspectives and stuff. Story games, and this is my crux, my whole argument against people who say there's no merit in them, right? There's no merit in story-based games, is the idea that both times in the last like couple of years, right? The 3 games that have won, like game of the year, Elden Ring, story. That's a story-based game, right? It doesn't feel narratively intense, but it's a story-based game. It's an action combat game, and it's a Souls-like, obviously, but there's story there. There's lore. There's rich lore, in fact, right? Then, what won in 2024? Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate 3 is a story-based game, that you can play with friends. It just happens you can play with friends. But it's like combines things about nerd culture with other forms of nerd culture, like gaming, like normal games with D&D. If you're not into D&D, you can play Baldur's Gate and get the literal, like, the same feeling, right? You can build your character a certain way, all that stuff. Then what won last year was Expedition 33. You see this trend of like these story-based games or these games that offer something else than this online experience. What has won Game of the Year that is primarily online? Right? There's literally nothing. There's nothing. You can't tell me there's a single game that you could put up there that's better than Expedition 33. That's better than Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe subjectively, yes, that's fine. Better than Elden Ring, right? I don't even play Elden Ring. You can't tell me that these things don't have merit. People wanted these games to win. Baldur's Gate won so many awards, I thought the thing was rigged. Expedition 33 won so many awards, I thought it was rigged. Right? But the game, despite its AI usage, which does frustrate me from like a person who enjoys art, what I'm trying to say here is these games have a following. And no matter what people say online when they're like, oh, I've never heard of this game, and they try to really convince you that, oh, none of the real dudes that I know would ever play this game. When they're referring to the real dudes playing Madden and 2K and Fortnite and League, right? And that's true, Gigi. That is a fact, right? It's really hard to lose when you're in every category. That's what was really frustrating about that, because I think Ghost of Yote, should have won the music department at least. 100%. I think it should have won music at the very least. It's a visually stunning game. It has a great soundtrack. The story is super compelling. It's almost more compelling than Tsushima for me. You know? I was locked in. I was watching my brother play that on the channel. Go ahead and watch that on the YouTube. But I was watching him play it, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is so narratively sound. Like, and her decisions, it doesn't end in the way that you want either. It doesn't give you the ending you want. You know? I'm not going to spoil it, but it's really sad. It's really a sad game, but you end up getting something really beautiful from that. You know? Like Ragnarok has a really sad ending. Right? Expedition 33. I haven't even played it, but my brother was like, he saw a spoiler of some kind, and he didn't even realize what the spoiler was about, because the game is so diverse. You know? It's like, so I'm sitting here, those are all story-based games. Those are popular story-based games, right? Elden Ring takes effort to play. It takes a skill. If you think Elden Ring is bad, then that's a skill issue. Or you're just like a hater. For me, it's a skill issue. I'd never be able to keep up with those people who play Elden Ring. Shout out to all those people who like, you know, I just don't have it. Like, I love turn-based stuff. You know, I love story-based things. Like, it's my favorite thing to play. You know? And it's crazy. No one ever puts down my opinion when I say that. Right? I've locked into story games for a while now, but no one puts that down. No one says to me, your choice of game that you like to play is bad. No one's ever said that. No one's literally, and it's insane, right? But if I were to voice this online, like if I were to put this on TikTok or whatever and say that, like, this is what I prefer. I'm not saying that every other game is bad. This is what I prefer. How many people do you think would be like, your preference is bad? Right? Because that's what it is. That's really what it is. Everyone is always feeling super right about everything they always say. Right? That's what they think. Everyone thinks their opinion is right. And all I'm trying to say is I'm trying to offer a different perspective. You know? Do not put down other kinds of games just because they're boring to you. That is not a real criticism of a game, right? When I say something boring, I'll be like, it's boring because of this. This is why it's boring. No one ever says something's boring and that's it. Why does the internet do that? You know, once again, I say the internet sucks because it's this hyperinflated nonsense. Like it feels like sometimes when I go on TikTok, I either get one of two videos. They're funny and they challenge my idea what comedy should be, right? Or two, it feels like Twitter again, Twitter 2.0. You know what I mean? It's very frustrating to go on TikTok sometimes because I'm one of those people who loves hearing someone else's opinion that don't necessarily agree with me. You think me and my brother agree on the same kinds of games? We play drastically different kinds of games. But you know what? He watched me on the couch when we were little. He watched me play all those story games. And he remembers them fondly. We played the crap out of Sly Cooper when we were younger. Right? And we both remember it fondly now. He never played Mega Man X-Clamation, but every time I play it, he's like, this game is goated. It'd be awesome if it got a remake. I'm not going to lie. I think it'd be awesome as a remake. But those are just an example. We used to be like a fighting game kind of duo. We used to play fighting games a lot. You know, Dragon Ball. We played that Inuyasha one, Feudal Combat, I think it's called. Anything Dragon Ball we played, right? But we moved on. We've like both become our own kind of gamers with our own preferences. And I never try to put down his perspective or something he likes just because I'm not a fan of it. You know, and I think it's really dumb. I just think it's dumb. We're at a point where, and this is, you know that thing where people say, oh, grown man this, grown man that. Y'all are adults. You can process information however you want. I'm not trying to tell you anything. Like, whatever. Oh, yeah, and also Dragon Quest, by the way. Dragon Quest was a game that he played. There was a point that was really hard, so he kind of dropped it. He told me about it. Then my wife got it for me for my birthday a couple of years ago. I never played it, right? I never finished it, excuse me. Because it was like weird. It was a little cringe. Some of the name. That's how I felt, right? But I sat down, played it on the channel, and I love it. It's one of my favorite RPGs. I want to play like everything in the series now. You know what I'm saying? Things are never black and white, and I really wish that people in the world would understand that kind of thing. It's just really bothersome how it seems like it's coming from basically only one facet of the gaming industry, like the gaming community, right? It only seems like it's coming from competitive people. You know? Dragon Quest 11, peak story, peak gameplay. It's really fun. It's very much what I hate about turn-based games. No, you're good. It's the menu-heavy thing, and I don't really care for that, which is why I always say, if you want a peak story game to play Persona 5, 100%. You will not get bogged down by the menus. Menus will get you really hard. I remember that was one of those series that, you know, I remember my wife locked into Sweets when she used to come through more. She locked into that. It was fun. It was just an enjoyable experience. Yeah, right. And that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with stopping a game because you're overwhelmed, right? That's the part of life. People have things to do, stuff like that, right? Sometimes you get tired of a game. Sometimes you get tired of bashing your head against the wall with a game to only just constantly lose. You take a break from it and you come back to it later and you realize, dang, this is awesome, right? Like, sometimes games need a two-parter. You can't always absorb a game off the rip. And that's what these competitive gamers, I feel like that's a thing. Doesn't it feel like competitive gamers? I don't know if anyone else feels like this. Doesn't it feel like competitive gamers are the kinds of people that are the definition of I like pancakes, but why do you hate waffles? Don't they feel like those kinds of people? They feel like deeply entrenched with whataboutism, you know? Or like, this is bad. I think this is bad, so it is bad. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe that's just a perspective I've had. But the reason I was even thinking about all this is because there's this dude on TikTok. I don't even realize his channel. I don't remember his channel, but it's very frustrating to know that there's a segment online that people just, they really can't get over this. This is a sentiment I've been seeing. It happened a lot, like I said. It was happening a lot last year, right? And it was really bothering me. It's been really bothering me, and I felt like I needed to talk about it. And I still say, despite everything else, that they can still have those opinions. I'll never put them down. I'll never say, oh, you can't have these opinions, yada, yada, whatever. You can do whatever you want, you know? It doesn't really matter what I'm saying. It doesn't really matter what other gamers are saying. You can feel whatever you want, and they're going to. That's what's crazy about it. You'll tell them this right to their face. You'll tell them, hey, I don't really like this thing. And you'll give them reasons why maybe it's bad. And they'll be like, oh, shut up. You know? Or whatever. Yeah, that's literally what it is. They'll give you like a reason. They'll give you a reason to dislike people like that. You know? I'm just trying to talk about the shit I like. And it's like, I don't know. It's just so odd. To me, that this opinion of like everything has to be one way or the other is insane to me, you know. Tengu said earlier, ball games have been around since Tennis for Two, the first game technically ever made, which was played on radar equipment. Yeah, exactly. Even like single player games like Galaga, right? Or Galactica, whatever that game is, where you're like that little ship and you're shooting those things down, right? That's competitive. There's a competitive scene about getting the best score. And I think that's super impressive. I think everybody who's good at competitive games is really impressive to me. You know? Everyone who's really good at like horror-based competitive games is even more impressive, like my wife. You know? Not only are you worried about other people around you, but now you have to absorb the whole scenery around you as well. You know what I mean? So you have to be like immersed and worry about everyone around you, and you have to come up with ways to like dodge enemies and stuff. Like Dead by Daylight, kind of. That's really the only experience I have with like competitive horror-based things. But I think like Outlast Trials is like that too. You have to worry about like the environment and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. And here's another thing. And Gigi said, and if you're someone's favorite game, they're going to vote on that in every category. That's why I think when you're talking about a voting system, right? When you're talking about something that's like based on votes, it's never something that is ever going to feel totally unbiased, right? When you have something like Expedition 33, which was definitely shaboinged that whole year, not saying it's bad or anything, I've never played it, and I don't think I ever will, but, you know, hearing how many people loved it, to the degree that they loved Baldur's Gate, because Baldur's Gate was exactly like that. People played Baldur's Gate, and I played Baldur's Gate too, that game is fun. People played Baldur's Gate and they were like talking about it forever, right? People played Expedition 33 and the exact same things happened. They reacted the exact same way to that game. So I knew it was going to be on the Game of the Year award. I did not expect it to win all those awards. And a lot of people were saying that it is a good game, but they didn't know if it was necessarily a game that should be even in all those categories. But I digress. My point is, like, yeah, right. Having 2 nominations in one category. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. You know, and if you're happy about the game, like, oh, an Astrobot. That's another game that won. Excuse me, Baldur's Gate, Elden Ring won 2023. Baldur's Gate won or 2022. Baldur's Gate won 2023. Astrobot won 2024, and then Expedition 33 won that, and Astrobot is a platformer. I don't believe there's even a story in that game at all. It's a platformer, but like, if you remember, all those games in that category for 2024 were like, I feel like they deserve to be there, you know. Astrobot was just this lovely, beautiful, like cute, really visually adorable game, you know. But I feel like, you know, after thinking about it, and after all the vitriol had died down a little bit, I thought it should have won. It was definitely a weird choice, and that's why I thought the Game Awards where they chose something that didn't win anything else, right? I don't think it won anything else, any other award, but it won because it was innovative and it was accessible. I don't think Expedition 33. That's why my initial reaction to it was like, oh damn, this shouldn't have won all this, because I don't think Expedition 33 is accessible for anybody, for like normal gamers, right? It's a Souls-like. They literally, on Steam, if you go to the page on Steam, it says as a genre, it's a Souls-like, right? A turn-based Souls-like. That's crazy. A turn-based, narratively based Souls-like. That's deep and intricate. Like, that's pretty cool, you know? And then I feel like, Gigi said, I feel like people don't actually try to be objective. There were lots of games I loved, but I'd vote for what I felt deserved it. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Yote didn't win anything. You know what I mean? Which is really sad. Which is what I was saying earlier. I thought it should have won visuals. I thought it should have won, I don't know, what do you call that? Music. The lo-fi in Yote was even better than the stuff in Tsushima, and I already thought Tsushima had a great, really cool soundtrack, you know. But maybe, I don't know, maybe people thought that was boring or something. I don't know. Ghost of Pite, exactly. It's crazy that I even played. Yeah, you streamed it the day or two Expedition came out, and now it's, yeah, right, yep. Which is fine, just crazy that it had to win Hello Awards just for people to play it. Which is also true. There was plenty of people who are story-based gamers who didn't know about much about Expedition 33. Which is crazy because it was definitely bounced on. For sure. You know what I mean? Gigi says, Elden Ring is fun. And I suck at it. Like, really suck. But it was enjoyable, and that's what I mean. Things don't have to be this thing where it's bad because you're bad at it. You think that I was good at every game I played, like all those Budokai games, Budokai Tenkaichi, those fighting games I was playing when I was a kid? No! Absolutely not. I was a super casual person. Fighters, I played Fighters, I think up until Bardock was released pretty much. And, I was just okay at it. You know? I was just okay at it. And it doesn't mean that game is trash. It doesn't mean it's bad. Right? There's nothing about a game like that subjectively, maybe I think it's not the greatest game, but that's because of Bandai's negative support for it, right? Randomly, they're just like, we're dropping Super Saiyan 4 this year into the game and shit. And I'm like, okay, you know? Then Gigi says, people who don't like Elden Ring are folks who hate games that hold your hand and tell you how to play, where to go, and what to do. Yeah, the yellow paint thing that people make fun of, or the giant cursor on the above your head to tell you where to go. Those games are fine. Obviously, like, you know, that's why for some people Cuphead was frustrating, but Cuphead is fun. It's hard. It's really, really hard, right? And super frustrating. When you beat that boss that you've been, like, bashing your head against and you do it well on the highest difficulty, it feels great. It feels fantastic. And I bet that's what people feel about Souls likes, right? And it's not arbitrarily difficult either. There's a way to play Cuphead, right? There's a way to play Elden Ring. There are even playthroughs out there, streams where people will play butt naked just to see if they can do it, right? Talk about bashing your head against the wall, you know? But the fact that people have the skill to do that and can complete it and then speed run it, oh my God. That's crazy. That's crazy. But you know, and also, yeah, Cuphead is pretty linear, but the fact that you can choose whatever stage you want to go to in that particular area before you, like, if a stage is giving you trouble, go to another stage that's maybe a little easier, or with mechanics that you can possibly try better on, right? Not necessarily like saying that Elden Ring and Cuphead are the same thing, but I'm saying, like, those are hard games. They're both hard story-based games that are sound. They're solid. They're solid experiences, you know? And I can tell you from experience that Cuphead is fun. You know, I can tell you from experience watching people play Elden Ring that it seems like a fun game. Just not for me. You know? Cuphead is different. I actually own a Cuphead, but I didn't even play FromSoft games to Elden Ring. In fact, I hated playing them. Yeah, that's another thing. There's Chibidoki, a VTuber or whatever. She played like a really entertaining Dark Souls 3, and she was dying a lot. You know, she was dying constantly. But you could tell like little by little, with the help of the chat, obviously, because first-time Dark Souls players are obviously going to use the chat. But like, she was getting better. She was getting much better. Like, little by little, she was getting way better. You know, and that's what those games do. They teach you, they force you to learn how to play instead of just being like, swing. And that's my thing about turn-based games. Turn-based games, no matter what you say, even on the lowest difficulty, you have to know your characters. You have to know how to play, right? You can't jump into a game expecting to win everything, which is what competitive gamers do. When you go into a match or a room or a lobby or whatever y'all call it now, right? You're not winning every time. That's not how that's going to work. On League, on Marvel Rivals, on Master Duel. Those are three examples of like competitive multiplayer games. You're not winning every time. NBA 2K, you're not winning every time, right? It's just wild to me how people assume that like story-based games are dummies. They're for morons. When you know for a fact that it takes skill to play those competitive games, especially when there are roles like DPS. It's funny. In competitive games, there's DPS, support, tank, etc. Guess what they have in story-based games? DPS, tank, support. Those things exist in both games. The only reason y'all feel like one is better than the other is because you're physically against someone. And that's dumb to me. That's ignorant. You're being disingenuous on purpose. You know what I'm saying? You're being frustrating on purpose. That is not an opinion that's real. You're not really saying anything. You're hating on something because you dislike it, which is not a criticism. I'm sorry, it's not. When you say that you're fighting against the AI and that's boring, that's not a criticism of the game, because you're broadening your scope to insult everyone who's ever played a story game or a turn-based game or action combat, even like a narrative action combat game. Like, those aren't real criticisms, and I refuse to accept that. You can still say them, but understand that like those are dumb. Those are just the dumb criticisms. They're not real. You're just trying to piss people off, you know? They also hate losing, which was probably the case for most people since every person played it. Yeah, right, exactly. That's my whole thing about Elden Ring. Exactly. Also don't mind waypoint games and knowing where to go, but Elden Ring has fun magic. So yeah, exactly. There's something, that's what I mean. Something about everything. Like, you don't know if a game is bad until you watch it or you play it, right? Like, that's just how it is. You assume that you don't like a game because you're used to doing this. Expand your range. You know? You think like the only story-based game that I have ever played is turn-based ones? Absolutely not. You know, I played Fire Emblem. I played platforming ones. I've played action combat ones like Final Fantasy VII or Final Fantasy 16, right? Some of the best, in my opinion, one of the best modern turn-based games is Metaphor ReFantazio. There's literally nothing touching that. You know, as a fantasy-based, turn-based narrative game, it's probably one of the most solid, most fun games I've ever played in my life. It kept me so gripped. That story is so entertaining, and the villain is so evil. I love that. You know, I haven't done a second playthrough of it, but I totally would. Like, stuff like that is cool. You know, and I'm sorry, like, there is, when you're playing a competitive game, you're doing the same thing every day. That's just how it is. Story-based games, at least. And another thing is, another criticism I heard is that cutscenes, for half the game, you're sitting in cutscenes. That's what story-based, that's what stories are. It feels like these people have never read a book. I'm not going to lie to you. It feels like they've never read a book in their entire life. Right? They're so bored by stories. By sitting in cutscenes, watching stories. Beautiful, crafted stories. Have you niggas ever read a book before? You know, can you sit down and read books? And if the immediate response from competitive gamers is like, books are boring, I see why you don't like story-based games. Clearly you don't have a brain to focus. Maybe you can't focus. Maybe there's something else hindering you, right? But those kinds of people will never say stories are bad. When you go see a movie, do you go see all those action-based films, right? Are you going to see a Marvel movie for the action alone? No. You're going for the story. You're going for the overarching story. Stories, I don't know why it's only games that gets this criticism. And it's dumb. It's just dumb to me. Sitting in cutscenes? Shut up. That's dumb. You sit in cutscenes in Elden Ring. You sit in cutscenes in stuff like, I don't know, like Skate even. Right? You sit in cutscenes in racing games, in, I don't know. When a character does an ult, that's a cutscene. It doesn't feel like it because you're interacting directly after that cutscene ends. But, like, that's a cutscene, right? When you're moving through a game like a shooter, as you're entering the lobby, that's a cutscene, right? That's a dumb criticism. You see, and it's maybe not even the best one. Maybe that counter I made isn't even the best one to it. But I'm just literally telling you that cutscenes do not exist in a vacuum. They don't exist just in one. They're not just story-based games. You're sitting through them all the time. And this is my thing. It feels like gamers are lazy. These gamers who say this shit are lazy. They're lazy and they're boring. These are boring gamers. Not the games that they're trying to criticize. Not this, whatever. These regurgitated points that they keep making over and over and over again. They're boring. That's boring. I don't know what compels you in real life to act like these opinions are even good. They're not good. They're not even good opinions. Right? And people will be like, oh, it's just my opinion. Yeah, your opinions can still be dog shit. Right? They're not facts. They're not facts. You're not telling me anything different. You're not giving me a unbiased criticism about something that you've seen. You're just saying, I don't like these things, and you're saying all those things that have these things in them are bad. And that's why I even started this rant, right? That's why I was bugged about it, because it doesn't feel like anything online can ever just be like, hey, you hear about that new thing? Oh yeah, I heard about it. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that you told me about that thing. And it's like, I don't like this thing, but it's pretty cool that you're sharing this knowledge with me. Are you gonna play it? And it's like, yeah, probably I'm gonna play it. Or are you gonna watch it? Yeah, probably. I'm probably gonna watch it. It's like, oh, that's cool. Tell me how you feel about it. You know, even if I don't like it, I can still share in that experience with you because learning about things is part of life. Developing and growing is part of life. In realizing things that you didn't like before is part of growing. You know, and that's evolution is a really big part of that. Clearly, these gamers refuse to evolve, right? I'm willing to play anything as long as it's cool, right? I'm willing to play a long-standing series like The Trails of the Sky or Yakuza, right? Which has an overarching narrative which spans like 9 games, right? Just the mainline ones. If we're just talking mainline ones, bro, 9 or 10 games. I was willing to dunk my entire head into that entire series because I loved it that much. Ricky liked it. Gigi liked it. Literally, that's all it took for me to enjoy it. And that's it. That's all I'm trying to say. And I didn't know I would like those games until I tried them for myself. And that is really an important distinction. You never know anything until you try it yourself. And that is the point I'm trying to make in this whole yap session. Appreciate things that are outside of your protection. They're outside of your little bubble that you made for yourself. Enjoy everything. Consume everything in a really positive way. You know what I'm saying? Yakuza. The Yakuza series. I think that's all I have to say on it, to be honest. I am really just tired of the sentiment. I saw it on TikTok and I was like, ooh man, I gotta talk about it, you know? Let me see. Yeah, act like having an opinion is forced hate. It's so stupid. Yeah. At this point, I'm not watching anymore. I'll wait to see the news and highlights afterwards. Yeah, but I mean, like, what if we want to interact with it? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Mind you, I haven't played the game, so I'm not going to say anything. I read that. Then it's just a popularity contest, which is fine, but call it like it is. Exactly. Which is why it's like just a suggestion, pretty much. The Expedition 33 one is just a suggestion. That's all. You can do whatever you want. Like Steam has their awards, Game Awards has theirs. PlayStation has their own. Like, I think it's called they have then there's the Golden Joystick. There's like a bunch of different awards for games, right? Also, he'll be playing multiplayer. Yes, sir. Yep. Of Yote. Yeah, Game of the Year is a voting thing of the people. It's probably one of the true award shows that does that. Yeah. By the time I played Elden Ring, I saw damn near every main boss and knew that's what stuff I wanted. Most people get really mad at others for wanting that out of a FromSoft game. Most of the time, fighting the CPU is harder than real people because the speed at which a comm can react is way better than most humans. That is an extremely good point. Oh my gosh, bro. That is so true. The fact that, like, and there's, oh my god, when we were playing Sparking Zero, and we were doing the story, you know how frustrating it was to fight a comm and the CPU, where it felt like it was reading our movements. That was so frustrating, right? And it's like, bruh, I don't know. That's my whole thing. That's my TED Talk, I suppose. I just wanted to get that out. I felt like it's an important distinction for someone who loves story mode games so much, right? I love them with all my heart and soul. There are some story games that people love that I don't, the story of them I don't care for. Persona 5 is a really good example of that. Where I love the gameplay. It's so much fun to play, which is why I go back to play it all the time. But damn, if it's not aggravating to play that story, sometimes it just feels inconsistent. The characters feel so inconsistent sometimes, you know. It's like they're so interesting in the story, and then like in their social links, they're like brain dead, you know. But anyway, that is my whole thing. That is my whole talk. What I wanted to yap about today. If you see this, fucking follow the stream, bro. Like jump on the stream, come to the stream. We play story games. Yakuza, GG. We play story games. We play action games. We play horror games. We play all kind of shit, bro. Like lock in. You know what I'm saying? Lock in.